Am I the butthole for warning my sister's boyfriend she wanted our parents to confront him at dinner? My 23F family went out for dinner a few days ago to celebrate my sister 26F Jen's birthday. When we got to the restaurant, Jen was already there alone. She said she told her boyfriend Blake the time got pushed back 30 minutes because she needed to talk to us alone. Jen was mad at Blake for not getting her any birthday gifts and only took her out to dinner to a place they go to often. Our parents understood her being upset, and she asked if they would try talking to him because she couldn't get Blake to understand how hurtful that was. I asked her if she had given him her usual present for his birthday or last holiday, and Jen said that wasn't important. For context, my sister's idea of a gift for her partner is lingerie and sex, and only ever that. I don't know about her past relationships, but I do know in the 2 years they've been together, I've heard and seen Blake give her gift ideas for him, and he winds up buying them for himself after the fact. He's come to Christmas at our house with gifts for Jen, and Jen always shows up empty-handed for him, saying she'd give him his present later. I told Jen it sounded like she got as good as she gives, whereas our parents said I should be concerned someone would be dismissive and vindictive toward my sister. Our parents said they'd think about talking to him based on his behavior when he arrived. So I text Blake that Jen was setting him up for a lecture. He wound up not showing up. Last night Jen called me angry. She saw my text to him and realized my text was the reason he canceled and accused me of not having her back, and she's told our parents I butt into their relationship, but I figure she was trying to get us involved in her relationship anyway. I probably could have just stayed quiet, but at the time it didn't sit right with me what she was trying to do. Am I the butthole update? Thank you everyone for the responses. I wouldn't say my sister is the golden child since we were treated equally growing up. More that our parents are family first no matter what. This is not the first time she's tried getting others to fight her battles. Just the first time she's done it in public and with our parents. I do not know if our parents know her gift giving, but it's pretty easy to figure out based on her comments being the same with every boyfriend she's had since high school. And no, I do not have feelings for Blake. I have a boyfriend of my own I love very much. They are broken up, and as some of you guessed, Jen is blaming me, but honestly I wasn't expecting to come through unscathed after I warned him. I got the news from our mother, who called earlier to hark on me not backing my sister up against a man who disregarded her wishes on an important day and bailed. I told Mom there are times you absolutely do have family's back, but when your daughter only ever forwards nature's gift card to her partners on gift-giving occasions, knowing they've asked for something else, and then involves the entire family for getting her process turned around on her, isn't it? Instead of agreeing to a public intervention, she should have told Jen to leave us out if it and keep it between them. Maybe shut down Jen's "all men need is sex to be happy" rhetoric years ago, and maybe she'd have a son-in-law by now. So that's all that. Thanks again. I think I'm going to go buy some just for the hell of it gifts for my own boyfriend. Next story. Am I the butthole if I say no to allowing my husband's daughter to come live with us full-time? I have been married to my husband for 6 years. We have 2 kids together, 8M and 4M. Our youngest is special needs. My husband also has a daughter, 12, from a previous relationship. My husband's ex has had primary custody. My husband gets SD on weekends and alternating holiday birthdays. This past weekend, my SD asked my husband if she can come live with him full-time. Her mom recently moved in with her fiancé and his kids, and there has been some friction with that from what I understand. Nothing nefarious, just new house, new rules, having to share a bedroom, etc. My husband didn't give her an answer either way. He said he would look into it. When he and I were discussing it, I had the following objections. SD and our kids do not get along. It is something we have worked on for years, in and out of therapy, and it just ain't happening. SD resents mine for existing, and is cruel towards my youngest for their disabilities. There have been issues with her bullying. My oldest is very protective of his little brother and hates SD for being mean to his brother. He has started physical altercations with her over it. The truth is that most of the time we have SD. I make arrangements to take the boys to visit their grandparents, or husband takes her out of the house for daddy-daughter time to avoid conflict. I cannot imagine how living together full-time would be for them. We really don't have room. We have a 4-bedroom home. Both my husband and I WFH so we can be a caretaker for my youngest. Due to the nature of his disabilities, it is really not feasible for him and my oldest to share a room. It wouldn't be safe or fair for my oldest. My SD's room is used as my WFH office space during the week. I arrange my vacation time and whatnot around her visitation so I can stay out of her space while she is here. I have to take very sensitive phone calls, and I need a closed door when I work so common areas are out, and my husband uses our bedroom as his home office, so that's out too. We don't currently have room in the budget to make an addition to the house or remodel non-livable spaces at the moment. My husband hears my objections and understands them, but he wants to go for it and figures that everything will eventually work out. He doesn't want his daughter to think he is abandoning her. And I feel for the girl. It would be awful for your dad to say no when you ask if you can live with him. But I have my own kids to think about too, and I just do not believe that her living here is in their best interest at all considering their history and our current living arrangements. Does saying no to this put me in evil stepmom territory? Edit. For the people who want to make me into an horrible homewrecker to go along with being an evil stepmom. Sorry to disappoint, but we did not have an affair. My husband and my stepdaughter's mom were never married. They were never in a relationship. They were friends with benefits. They bartended together, would shoot the bull, and would sometimes get drunk, and my husband claims he needed beer googles cause she really isn't his type. When my SD's mom found out she was pregnant, she told my husband she was keeping it and asked if he wanted to be in the baby's life. They never lived together, except for a few weeks during the newborn stage to help out. Yes, I had my first before I married my husband. My husband and I were in a long-term relationship when I had a birth control malfunction. My husband and I discussed what we wanted to do, and we both decided we wanted to raise the child. A few days later, my husband proposed. I wanted to take time to recover from birth and wait until our kiddo was old enough to pawn him off on the grandparents for the week so husband and I could enjoy our wedding. We didn't get married until my oldest was 2. Edit 2, regarding my youngest son's disabilities, South Dakota's bullying, and my oldest starting fights since there is a lot of projection and speculation. My youngest son has both physical and mental disabilities. He uses multiple kinds of medical and therapy equipment. My SD has shoved him out of his wheelchair. She has pinched him hard enough to leave bruises. She has hit his face when he was having trouble verbalizing. I'd gaff if this is normal sibling behavior. It is alarming enough to me that I feel it is best for my youngest to spend as little time as possible with her until this behavior completely stops, and I will say it has lessened quite a bit. We went through a period of it happening frequently, and it has slowed. The last incident was 2 months ago when SD grabbed my son's wheelchair and aggressively pushed him out of her way because he was blocking the hallway. One of the times that my son had started an altercation with her was because she had told my son that his brother was not a real person and that she was going to call the hospital to have him taken away so they could perform experiments to find out what it was. She went into detail about things they would do to him, like ripping his fingernails out. And yes, my son did lose his temper and hit her. My son was immediately disciplined loss of tablet time, and we had an age-appropriate discussion about how his heart is in the right place to want to protect his little brother, but he needs to find an adult when something like that happens. This was not made up. Stepdaughter admitted she said it to my husband when he was able to sit her down and talk with her later in the day. I am not allowed to discipline or have parenting talks with SD per Biomom's wishes. I am not welcome to be a part of SD's therapy journey, mostly per Biomom's wishes. She does not want me involved. My husband has always been worried about rocking the boat with Biomom on these things, so I do not know the extent of what therapeutic treatments she has had. I do know she does go to therapy during the week, and my husband has gone to sessions, but it isn't something he is free to discuss with me. So I am in the dark about that. Edit 3. There's someone in the comments who claims to be my sister-in-law. They are either a troll or are mistaken. My husband is an only child. I don't have a sister-in-law. Update. So last week my husband and I sat down together and talked about SD coming to live with us full-time and how that would work out. It was a difficult discussion because, as some Redditors had suggested, I really pushed hard for him to really think things through and figure out the obstacles. Where would he and I work? Common areas are out due to the nature of our jobs. I can't due to employer restrictions. He does some NSFW things in his "we don't want the kids to see." How are we going to handle the animosity and bullying between the kids? What consequences would be in place? We talked about what expectations would be for SD living here full-time versus just weekends, about how she probably has unrealistic expectations about what the nitty-gritty life here is like. We talked through very possibility we could come up with, including out there possibilities like selling out home or separating our household and living apart for a while. We ran numbers to see how it may affect our finances. And ultimately, we agreed that the answer was not yet, with a goal for our family working towards it. And that the best course of action would be to slowly adjust the amount of time she spends in our home versus a sudden custody switch. So Friday night, my husband took SD out to talk to her about everything. He explained to her that she wouldn't have her own room at our place for a couple years, but that is something that is on the top of the list for home improvements once our youngest's handicap accessibility renovations are paid off. He talked to her about what expectations of living with us would be like, that she would have chores and responsibilities. And most importantly, they talked about the bullying and laid down the provision that we needed to see her relationship and attitude towards her brothers improve before she can live here full-time. SD obviously wasn't thrilled about any of this, but she said okay and that she would do better with her brothers. So Saturday I made arrangements for my parents to watch our sons, and we invited SD's mom over so we could all sit down and figure out how SD can start to spend more time here. And that is when it fell apart. Mom is not okay with a change in custody at all. Absolutely not, was her answer. She took SD home early Sat. My husband tried to reach out to SD on Sun to see how she was and ask if she wanted to do their guitar lesson over Skype or something since her mom took her home early, but she never responded. He called SD's mom and she informed him that SD had lost her phone privileges. So we don't really know what is going on with all that. Next story. Am I the butthole for walking out of my engagement party and refusing to answer calls for 3 days? My now ex-boyfriend proposed 4 days ago. Let's call him Tim. Tim and I have been together for 2 years. We talked about marriage, we are both 26 and kids, etc. Until last week I thought I had the perfect love life. Now, Tim has his best friend Mimi fake name. Tim also has a friend group he is very close to. The problem throughout our relationship was that Tim would place me last whenever his friends were involved. He missed a promotion dinner for my work because Mimi's dog was throwing up. He missed Diwali celebrations with my family because his friends wanted him to help paint their new house. Plus, some issues during his teenage years involving his friends resulted in his dad threatening to take away his inheritance and distribute it to relatives. For context, his dad introduced us, until last year, before I left the workplace which I joined straight after college. His dad was my boss. I still see him as a father figure and respect him a lot. Now, I have outright told Tim that I don't like public proposals. I am very introverted, and having eyes on me during a loving moment will only cause me anxiety. Tim said he understood and promised he wouldn't do one when he proposed. Another thing I told Tim was that Mimi treats me passive-aggressively because I'm kind of an anxious person. I have mild OCD, and asked him to not involve her in our affairs. Tim said Mimi only wants the best for us. I kind of didn't press the issue after he got defensive. Thursday, after I entered my flat, I was greeted by all of Tim's friends, with Tim in a suit and a ring in hand. I kid you not, my flat was swarmed. There were people I didn't even know. Before Tim even said anything, Mimi chimed in and said, "Chill up, dear God, this is not the time to make that face." I saw red. I was having a severe anxiety attack, as I don't do well with lots of people. I calmly told them that there would be no proposal and to get the hell out of my flat. They looked like in shock, so I just left my flat with just my purse, called my best friend on the way and told her to get them out, and just called a car service and sat in the car, crying, for 2 hours and went to my cabin I brought. I texted my parents so they wouldn't worry and told them to not take Tim's calls, switched off my phone, and stayed there. Luckily, I had enough cash to make a grocery run, and the cabin was used last month. I only switched my phone on when I was calling a car and saw the barrage of calls and texts. I called Tim in the car, and he sounded defeated and kept on apologizing and crying. I told him it was over. Turns out my best friend told his dad, who was so mad. He told him that he would only get half his inheritance. I now feel that I reacted very badly and could have handled it with grace. I might have let my anxiety take over and overreacted, and I cost Tim his money. Am I the butthole? Edit. My ex-BF and I are both Indians. One of the reasons why Tim's dad likes me is that I am from the same culture, though I am not comfortable with this reasoning. I am a lawyer and make enough money to buy and maintain a flat and a cabin. Tim only has access to my flat. Update. Most people in both my previous posts said that it wasn't my fault, and after properly speaking to my family and friends, I realized that I was indeed not that wrong. The bit about changing the locks, I'll get to that later, but my best friend, who is staying with me for a few days, said that she checked and everything in my flat was in the right place, so I guess that's one problem less. People who keep sending me DMs saying it is fake because I own a cabin, I have no answer for that. Yes, I make enough money to live comfortably on my own and also have an extra place that I like to go to alone. And to some really funny gentlemen who have sent me more DMs on how I'd never find a husband if I didn't learn to keep my mouth shut, please eat crap. I don't have the mental space to argue with incels right now. For the main update, I went and spoke to Tim's dad first. He was very mad at his son. He kept saying that Tim had finally crossed limits with that group and asked me to forgive his son. I respectfully told him that even if I got back with his son, my dad wouldn't approve. Which was true, and I said that because I knew for Tim's dad, my dad's opinion mattered more. His dad then said that he was deeply sorry and that he would still support me if I needed help in the future. And I decided to take the things he left at my flat to him because I didn't want him over mine ever again. Tim said he was very sorry, that he hadn't thought I was being genuine about my social anxiety. He has seen me get panic attacks in crowds, and he thought that his friends' enthusiasm would be a positive thing. I asked him why none of my friends were there, and he said that because I have a very small number of friends, he thought we would have a nice dinner with them to share the news. Not gonna lie, his words hurt, because his friends deserved to be at the proposal, but mine didn't because there were only 5 of them. Tim also mentioned that Mimi didn't like one of my friends because she was a single mom, and it just made me more mad. I told him that he would be better off marrying Mimi because it was quite clear everything in his life was about her. I told him that he was a crap partner and the reason why I wouldn't marry him and his dad is going to cut off his money is because he has let Mimi bully me throughout our relationship, and it was Mimi's words that made me leave the proposal. Tim looked very hurt and started apologizing. He also said that he never cheated on me, that he loved me, and he promised to do better. I told him I'd give him a chance if he cut off every one of his friends and moved with me to another city. He started crying at that and said he possibly couldn't live that way and asked me to reconsider. I told him I knew he would never choose me over his friends, and I was feeling very petty, so I told him that Mimi would also never choose him over her successful boyfriend, nor would any of his friends choose him over their own families. He told me he was very sorry, and that he would limit contact with them. But I told him there was no way I was going to be with him. I dropped his things, and I wanted to cry because he wouldn't even get up from the sofa or apologize or say that he wouldn't speak to Mimi again. He just turned his face away. I left. Mimi later came by to my flat and asked if we could talk, so I let her in. My friend says it was a dumb move, but I was working and crying at the same time, so I wasn't thinking much. She said that Tim yelled at her for ruining his relationship, and she didn't know what she did wrong. I honestly had zero energy for her and just told her if she was done talking to please leave. Mimi said that she just wanted to be there for Tim, and me making his dad cut him off was an awful thing to do. I then asked why she made a comment she knew would piss me off when I was being proposed to. Mimi replied that it was a joke and I shouldn't have taken her seriously. I just asked her to leave after that. She said she hoped I would be happy in the future, so I guess that was it. All of Tim's friends' numbers are blocked, including Mimi's. I blocked Tim and I'll get the locks changed next week. I wish I could write something positive here, but alas. Hopefully, there will be no more updates on this. Next story. Am I the butthole for not wanting to walk her down the aisle or lie in a speech? I 41M have 2 kids with my ex-wife. 42F a son John 22 and daughter Sally 20. I'm remarried to my wife 28. I'm very close with my kids. My son is engaged to Abby. She seems nice, but has been a bit pushy trying to create relationships with me and my wife, though she's also awkward with her. Abby isn't close to her family. She told us many stories why, and while some of her complaints don't seem awful, it's not my place to judge, and I didn't live it so I can't know anyway. We've tried to be welcoming, but Abby has forced her way into some family traditions where she wouldn't have been invited, and some where no one outside of specific family would have. She has been calling Sally sis since they were only dating a few months, has an odd sister/mother-in-law thing she does with my wife, and the one I'm not a fan of, wants me to be like father to her. Not because we've clicked or anything. We are very different people, not saying that in a bad way. Just saying it's not based on how we get along or anything. My kids and I have a tradition when they come over that we have a private catch-up in my office study before they leave, which is now even more important to them because while they both get along well with my wife, they don't want to have personal conversations around her yet. Abby asked if we could talk, and after I explained the tradition, John later asked that I do it, saying she'd never had a caring conversation with her dad. We compromised that I didn't include her in the tradition, but do join the 2 of them for coffee and let her talk. Then she started calling me dad. They weren't even engaged yet. John pulled me aside and begged me to give her that. Laid this whole thing on me about me always being the dad she always wanted right in front of her, and she just wanted that. Told me she cried watching me and Sally together. She still gives me random hugs. I'm a lucky dad. I didn't like it, but I do feel bad, so fine, I gave her that. She wants me to walk her down the aisle and the father-daughter dance. I don't want to walk her down, and I walk with a cane, so dancing is hard. At my own wedding I only danced twice. John is begging for me to do one, preferably the aisle. They came over Sunday. John and I were talking. I thought to address it when Ab walked in without knocking, asking if he'd told me yet. I asked what. John said she wanted me to say something about having a second daughter now in my speech and how I loved her. I just looked at him. She asked if I'd do the walk and dance for Sally. I said of course. She yelled she's my daughter too, and I said it will never be the same. Sally is my actual daughter. I tried to explain I'd talk about her being a happy addition to the family, and I love how happy she makes Jack, which I thought was a good compromise, but she started crying. John apologized and they left, but he called me when they were home nearly begging me to. Am I the butthole because I won't lie and say I love her or she's my daughter? Update. I had planned on writing this sooner, but life got in the way in a couple of really good ways. But people were helpful and asked for updates, and I have a surprise-free day, so here it goes. Mother's Day, my kids and their partners go to visit my ex-wife. So it turns out my ex-wife and Abby are a lot closer than I realized. She calls her mom, which is part of where this comes from. Also, apparently my ex has been egging it on. On Mother's Day they were talking about the wedding, and I guess whenever Abby referred to me it was as dad. My son apparently told her let it go, which led to yelling. Abby about deserving to be my daughter. Ex telling her that she's right. Son telling her that I am trying and she should be realistic about things. Sally telling her I only had one daughter, which was apparently a response to Abby saying to her that as my daughters they should be united. According to my son, Abby was crying. According to Sally, she was crying and yelling and kicked something before going to her room. And Sally told me she went off on her mom, but will not elaborate, so I don't know what was actually said. But knowing Sally, woo boy. Around 2 a.m. I got a text from Sally's partner's phone saying, Abby really is great. She hasn't been perfect, but you should give her a chance and you will learn to love her. I saw it when I woke up. I tried to text her back, but was blocked, so I called Sally, but they were driving. They stopped by my place later that day because I am on the way and my daughter prefers my liquor and cooking, and they told me about the night before. At the end, I asked to speak to her partner alone. I asked if I had done something to upset her. She was confused, and I told her I was blocked. She said I wasn't, but checked her phone and I was. And I said it was after her message, and she asked what message. I showed her. It was not on her phone anymore. At that point we brought in Sally and caught her up. Neither of them were happy. A couple of days later, John and Abby dropped by unannounced. Not something we really do in this family, but okay, fine. I had mad salmon. Does not take long to cook. I cook 2 more. Wife serves while I make drinks. The entire night was Abby trying to bring up the wedding. John trying to change the subject. Abby not allowing that. We talk logistics because I am helping them get some good deals through some professional contacts I have, when finally she just says, so I was talking to mom. She said that you can walk me down the aisle and she'll do the dance, or you can dance and she'll walk. It's your call, but you need to choose soon. I reiterated that I could not dance. She tried arguing that I had danced a little at my wedding, but I made it clear that is different and did not feel comfortable walking her. She got upset and said, Mom loves me, why can't you? I felt bad but couldn't lie. I pointed out that she had John who loved her, my ex-wife, friends. She had people who love her. She said, but other than ex-wife, those aren't my parents. I said, neither am I. She was very emotional, so my wife and I gave them a few minutes. My son and I were alone later. He looked exhausted. He said the problem was that after Mother's Day, Abby had called Sally and kept saying they are both my daughters, that I did not get to be close with one but not both, and that it was them against me, but at that one Sally cried havoc and let slip the dogs of war. Things were said. Grievances were aired. John had to hang up before it got worse. But I guess Abby was shaken, but there was a new problem. Abby had decided in her head that I did not mean what I have been saying and was just doing it for Sally. He told me he would handle it. Ron Howard, he did not. So now I get text messages from Abby every couple of days acting like we have a secret relationship Sally doesn't know about. She even called herself my secret daughter and lolled. She invited my wife to lunch saying, 2 out of 3 of his girls going out. She has even started using the pressure of showing up at events like a recent barbecue to play a certain image. She hugs me more and holds it. Wants to do pictures with just me or my wife and I, but always a few with just me to post with captions I do not like. My wife is getting especially annoyed because of how she is with her. I guess Abby surprised her with Father's Day plans for me that had to be shut down. As it is, she still inserted herself into the day, but she has a soft spot for her, and when Abby gets emotional she caves. My wife is a sweetheart. I asked him if he is upset with me, and he said no, he just wished it was different. He said we're good, but he's worried he and Sally aren't, which is when I took the advice of some people and suggested premarital counseling. He said he would talk about it. Abby is insisting Sally go to her fitting. That shop should pay per view that potential Royal Rumble because Sally is not holding her feelings back anymore. I told him Sally loves him and I'll talk to her. But for now it is stressful all around. Abby driving my wife crazy with her ideas for what my girls should be doing, driving me crazy with dad-daughter content, drove Sally to the edge, and oh yeah, last night sent me an email with 3 styles of father-daughter dances and song options, so I'm not feeling any more respected or heard than before. The 6 of us have barely been in the same room in order to let things calm down since Father's Day, which was great until it was a crap show. Sorry this is so long. With all the craziness, this is still the abridged version. We are supposed to meet Friday, Sally's partner, and I have a bet going about how bad it will go. So onward and upward. I hope you fathers had a less dramatic day than I did. And by any chance, does anyone know exactly how bad of a crime I need to commit to enter witness protection? Just curious. I hope you guys like this video. If you did, make sure like, comment, share, and subscribe the channel James Stories.